Hello and welcome to a new edition of DWTV's business magazine, Made in Germany. I'm Monica Jones. Good to have you with us. While the industrialized world is struggling with its ongoing financial and debt crises, millions of people in Africa are faced with starvation. This week, as DWTV puts a special focus on the tragedy at the Horn of Africa, we report on Germany's aid organization Welthungerhilfe and its struggle to feed the world. Here's what else we have on the agenda. Revival, the triumphant return of the vinyl record. Counterbalance, the task of creating a European rating agency. And Green Soap, the Sonnet company helps keep the waters clean. Reports and images from the Horn of Africa are hard to bear these days. Children ravaged by the effects of hunger, too weak to cry, and their distraught, starving mothers sitting by helplessly. Some 12 million people are threatened by the food crisis in the region. It's the worst famine in 60 years, and a shameful reminder that our modern world is still unable to prevent such tragedies. Sure, donations have been generous, but aid has been slow to arrive at the Horn of Africa. The United Nations says at least another 700 million euros are needed. We talked to some German companies to find out how they donate and how effectively their money is spent.
Jürgen Högemann's colleagues know he's after their money, and he usually does get them to open their wallets when he explains what's happening in Somalia. Högemann works for a mechanical engineering company just outside Bonn. During his breaks, he collects donations from his co-workers. People give 1 or 2 euros, sometimes 5 or 10, to help those stricken by famine in the Horn of Africa.
I'm a very emotional person. It moves me.
Högemann started collecting money 2 weeks ago.
I try to convince them that these people are really in need. When you consider that a family of 5 can survive on 40 euros a month, it's almost impossible to imagine, and that it hasn't rained in 7 years.
Högemann asks his boss for a donation too. How about a few thousand euros? Both men hope their donations will actually arrive in Africa and do something for those in need.
We're thinking positively that 80 or 90% of the sum will arrive there. But clearly, as with many fundraising campaigns, people think that not all the money will reach those who really need it.
Högemann's contributions go to Welthungerhilfe, one of Germany's biggest aid organizations. It's financed through donations and government subsidies. Welthungerhilfe uses emotionally charged ads to get people to donate. Even though this image is powerful, fundraisers here know it's not somber enough. So far, the organization has collected 13 million euros for the crisis in the Horn of Africa.
Aside from the big catastrophes or the lingering ones that don't get as much press or media coverage, what's often problematic is to find ways to get people to want to support our development policies and our long-term relief efforts.
The organization's lead buyer, Jürgen Lüdemann, is the man who decides how the money will be spent. A colleague in Kenya reports that what's most needed in the refugee camps is 100,000 buckets to haul water. It's Lüdemann's job to buy things cheaply. With foodstuffs, that's become difficult because speculation is increasing volatility in the commodities markets.
Many prices have risen sharply. Take rice. I remember years ago I could buy rice for $175 a ton. Now I'm paying 5 times as much. That's a problem for us.
And what would these cost?
These 4x6 meter tarpaulins cost around $15 with the rings.
The buyer doesn't just react to current crises. He must make provisions for impending ones too, such as possible floods in Pakistan. Ludeman has suppliers around the world. He buys rice in China, beans in South Africa, and replacement parts for construction machinery in Germany.
My colleagues also expect that I'll know who can deliver what cars where. And not half a year from now, but as soon as possible.
Meanwhile, Wolfgang Hüggemann and his wife are knocking on the doors of companies around Bonn, searching for major donors. They convinced managers of this regional bank to donate 400 euros and to allow collection tins to be placed in its branches.
This time we're offering interregional support, but that fits with our business model. We don't pay interest rates as high as the direct banks, but we give to good causes.
Does that give you a good image?
Absolutely.
The Hüggemanns hope to collect at least 77,000 euros, or €1 from each resident of their hometown of Troisdorf.
As you can see, we have the support of everyone we've talked to. It's just great.
Drought, ineffective production, high prices for raw materials and civil war. Many factors have contributed to East Africa's current famine. How can these things be prevented and how can we effectively fight hunger? Here's our new question of the week. What should be done to combat hunger in the world? Let us know what you think. Just go to our website at dwworld.de/English/Made in Germany, all in one word. Fill in the online questionnaire and you'll automatically qualify for our next draw. With a bit of luck, you could win this USB card, which is coming up any moment. Here it is. With our in-depth series of reports celebrating the 125th anniversary of the automobile. And as always, we look forward to hearing from you. Last week, we wanted to know what you expect from Germany in the financial crisis. Oscar Mugire wrote to us from Kenya, and he thinks the German parliament, the Bundestag, should approve an emergency fund to help the European Union because he doesn't want to see a failing EU. Thanks, Oscar, for your input. Much appreciated. And now, something for our music lovers out there. This week, the IFA Consumer Electronics Trade Fair gets underway in Berlin, and it will surely showcase the latest in audio technology, that is, CD players, iPods, etc. But what about those ancient machines to play vinyl records? Long pronounced dead, vinyl has re-established itself, and sales of vinyl records around the world are higher now than they've been since 1991. It's a trend we can also see here in Germany. While CD sales are declining, they've been slowing for years to less than 100 million in 2010. Vinyl records are gaining ground again, with sales reaching an impressive 600,000 last year. And more international artists have their LPs and singles pressed by the Palace company in Germany. Palace is a family business and Europe's last bastion in the vinyl record market.
Scratches and pops. Udo Karduk listens intently to everything except the music. Looking through the microscope, he sees a dust particle was trapped in the record when it was pressed. Like a patient engraver, he runs a needle across the raw pressing until the groove is clean.
I listen for whatever doesn't belong. Some productions are supposed to crackle. You hear the pop, and normally you stop the record there. I understand music a bit. I know what isn't part of the rhythm and needs correction, and when it's intentional. You have to have a steady hand and move the needle delicately. You need a feeling for it and not use force to try to get rid of these pops with coarse movements.
This is the new record by the Beastie Boys. 8,000 copies were ordered in white vinyl for the American market. The demand for traditional vinyl records is so great that the U.S. band ordered a second pressing. That's no problem for Pallas, a family-owned company where everything is still done as it was back in the 70s and 80s.
Here I have a lump that would be turned into a record. This particular one is waste, but this is what it would look like when it's put in the mold with a label. And then a record is pressed at about 110 degrees Celsius.
24 hours of preparation, most of it by hand, are needed before the music can be pressed into the vinyl. The staff is experienced. Many of them have worked here for almost 30 years. The company produces about 10,000 records a day. Metallica, The Police, many artists have Pallas press the records. Managing director Holger Neumann is especially proud that Pallas has pressed the entire Rolling Stones catalog. And Pallas is selling noticeably more vinyl records than it did a few years ago.
The CD was a terrible blow to the record industry. Some business friends gave us a tip. If we didn't need the space, we should leave the machine standing, ready to produce. And then came the day when the Love Parade started, and DJs needed records to scratch. And some of them asked us. That was a signal records were coming back. And now, knock on wood, we're busy again.
Fans of vinyl want some popping and cracking. The quality control department quickly checks out the Stones, Supertramp, and the Beastie Boys. If the controller gives a thumbs up, production can start. The records are put in sleeves and packaged, almost entirely by hand, and ever more of them. Sales at Pallas grew 20% last year.
If Pallas were a country with such good business results, it would surely also get the thumbs up from the world's most powerful rating agencies. These have come under fire recently for their role in the Eurozone debt crisis, following their controversial downgrades of Greece, Portugal and Ireland. The US agencies Standard & Poor's, Moody's and Fitch rule the world of rating agencies, together holding a 95% market share. Now, Europe wants to found its own agency, one that can hold its ground against the American rivals. We met the man who's been put in charge of this ambitious project, Markus Krall, senior partner at strategy consultancy Roland Berger.
Many have failed to realize the project, but Markus Krall refuses to be discouraged. The management consultant rushes from one appointment to the next. He wants to found a new European ratings agency. And for that, he has to persuade banks and investors. He needs money, lots of it.
You need 25 to 30 people who among them are able to raise 300 million euros to launch this ratings agency. So we are looking for people who can easily manage a 10 to 15 million euro investment. Fortunately, there are a lot of them in Europe.
Krall, aged 48, wants to increase European influence in the financial markets. The new ratings agency would seek to balance out the big American agencies. He's been pounding the pavement for 2 months to accomplish that.
As long as I'm under direct pressure and have to hold a speech or answer questions, I don't notice it. But as soon as I have a longer break, I notice I've consumed a lot of energy.
The pressure comes from all sides. Some investors are still skeptical about whether Krall's idea could work. And they want to know whether a European agency will be worthwhile for them. What Krall is planning is a revolution in the financial world.
We've recognized a series of aspects that have to be corrected if we want to bring lasting stability into the financial and credit markets. For example, more competition in the ratings industry, including liability for ratings. So in the future, ratings agencies will be liable for their products and not merely voicing an opinion.
Up to now, ratings agencies have worked outside the public eye. Markus Krall wants to change that. He wants evaluations to be independent and comprehensible.
The European Ratings Agency will be extremely transparent in its construction. A glass construction, if you will, that everyone who has access to the internet can see into. So he knows as much about the agency as its CEO does. The European Ratings Agency will have a different funding model. Namely, the investor who makes decisions based on the ratings will be the one who pays for them.
American ratings agencies operate on a different model. Markus Krall meets with Jürgen Berblinger, who used to head the German branch of Moody's. The two men have known each other for 13 years. They don't want our camera present at the discussion. Afterwards, we ask what the competition thinks about Krall's idea.
It's a fascinating concept that hasn't been thought of before. Today, the traditional ratings agencies, or the ratings made by the agencies, are paid for primarily by the rated companies. And so in some ways, they're open to criticism.
He has a valuable inside view due to his former position. And of course, he has a good market view, so it was an interesting exchange today.
Krall seldom has time for a breather. The major project to start a European ratings agency is more than just a job for him.
The biggest challenge is just to stay on course because it's very hard work. And it's also tough to explain the concept to such a large number of individuals and institutions so that they can understand and support it and commit to it.
Markus Krall would like to see the headquarters of the European Ratings Agency to be in Frankfurt, and to see it issue its first ratings as early as next year.
And for more on this story, we're joined by Henrik Enderlein, a professor of political economics at the Hertie School of Governance. Now, why doesn't Europe have a rating agency yet? What's taken so long?
Why would it matter where a rating agency is located? Information is global, markets are global. I wouldn't put too much emphasis on this Europe versus the US story. Rating agencies have a very specific business model. Providers that actually want a financial product being graded pay the rating agencies, and it's not the investor paying. So what I like about that idea is that the investor is going to pay, but that's the main difference between the three and this one. It's not regions.
Now, you're saying don't put too much emphasis on America versus Europe when it comes to rating agencies, but that's exactly what's been happening. Those three US agencies have been criticized for pouring oil into the fire and sort of worsening the Eurozone debt crisis. You don't agree with that?
I think financial markets have all the information available. We talk about sovereign debt. We don't talk about corporate debt. No financial investor is capable of knowing exactly what happens in this or that small company. But we talk about 50, 60 sovereign countries that have their fiscal policies, that issue debt. And so it should be possible for an investor in London or the US or Frankfurt, for that matter, to know exactly the state of the US financial and debt position. So when the rating agency comes and says, oh, by the way, we also think it's no longer AAA, but it's only AA or AA plus, then this is just sending this additional signal into markets, but it's by no means the real trigger of a significant market movement.
But based on what you're just saying is that those rating agencies base their ratings on the mountains of debt. In that case, Germany should be downgraded too. Aren't there any other factors playing into it?
Sure, it's quite subjective, and this is what I was trying to say. If you are an investor, you should think about, do I want to invest my money in Japan? Do I want to invest my money in the US or in Germany? And then you look not only at debt levels, but you ask yourself which party is in power, what is the political stability, what can be natural disasters. We've seen in Japan that something of that kind can happen. So I think the rating agencies just provide good information, the same way a newspaper provides information or other people in the market out there. And ultimately, it's up to the bank, it's up to the investor to know exactly which type of paper they're buying.
Right. Now, let's say that there will be a European rating agency. I mean, how much influence will it actually have, given that the US agencies are so powerful already?
That depends on market players. You only earn credibility and trust over a certain period of time. You can't buy that from one day to the next. So I expect this to take 5 years, 10 years before it will really be established in the market. You have to have a track record in order to say to investors, we are better than Standard & Poor's or Moody's. And up to now, there is no such track record. So I wish them a lot of luck, but I'm rather skeptical that it's going to fly.
So you don't seem to be very hopeful about a European rating agency being able to calm markets, which is very much necessary right now.
Calming markets is not something that should come from the rating agencies. We have many other actors, the European Central Bank as a central bank. We have the European Rescue Fund, the EFSF, that's in the market right now. So those are the players I would like to look at, and not some private company, be it in New York or Frankfurt.
OK. Henrik Enderlein, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
In the late 1960s, Germany's rivers carried heaps of foam, a result of pollution from soap and other detergents. Two entrepreneurs in southwest Germany were so disturbed by the sight of the foaming water that they decided to create a more environmentally friendly soap. On the shores of Lake Constance, they founded the Sonett Company, today's Germany's third largest provider of biological cleansers and soaps. Here's our new installment in our series, Not Business as Usual.
Sonnett's entire staff of over 40 has turned up.
Every time an employee celebrates a birthday, we all gather together and sing a song. We already know 4 songs.
They may be amateur singers, but when it comes to making cleaning products, the people at Sonnett are professionals. These huge tanks and a complicated processing system are used to produce liquid soap. The plant cost over 2 million euros.
We've had a very good relationship with our bank. They know us pretty well. They're keeping track of our development, which has been very successful. So it's no real problem for us to get funding to make investments of this size.
Sonnett produces around 40 soap and detergent products. Gerhard Heid and a partner founded the company in the 1970s. For years, it was a 2-person operation. But after organic supermarkets began springing up, business took off. Suddenly, eco-cleaning products were hot stuff.
The original idea came from water research, when we realized how much detergents were polluting groundwater. It was about finding new and different ways of washing things.
Sonnett's detergents are completely biodegradable. It uses specially treated water in its production. 7,000 liters a day are fed through these glass funnels in which semi-precious stones are suspended. A naturalist came up with the idea.
He pointed out that you can rejuvenate water or energize it by allowing it to create a vortex in these egg-shaped forms. Naturalist Victor Schauberger calls rainwater young water, and water from a spring mature water. We replicate this passage through the earth, through rock, with the 12 stones hanging here.
Heid and his customers believe this process has an effect. Sonnett is committed to helping the community as well. The firm employs workers with disabilities to put labels on products destined for foreign markets. Sonnett collaborates with Leyenhof, a community project for people with special needs.
Our costs remain regardless, but this way we can also provide financial support for a non-profit organization, so it's a really good fit. We're also delighted to work with the people from Leyenhof on a daily basis. So there's an added benefit in human terms too.
Taking a different approach to washing seems to be paying off for Sonnet. Last year, sales totaled more than 6 million euros. And the company's products are sold in over 40 countries.
And that's all for this edition of Made in Germany. If you would like to see any of our reports again, just go to our website at dwworld.de/English/Made in Germany. And of course, be sure to join us again next week. Until then, take care and bye-bye.